Welcome to Deep Drinks Podcast, where the drinks are deep and the conversations are deeper. Thank you everyone for coming out to this very special episode of Deep Drinks Podcast. We have I say this every time, but we do actually have a very special guest this time. I wanted to interview Biddy for a long time because I just find her journey fascinating. So we're going to introduce her shortly, but I just wanted to first celebrate. Thanks everyone for coming out. It's awesome to see everyone's smiling faces. What's everyone drinking? But I just want to show you our channel growth over the last few episodes. So you can see the little bar down the bottom. When we get to 1,000, we're going to do a charity stream. So it's like bam, 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 bam. That's what's happening. We are growing, and it's so super awesome. But what's even better, and I could not make this up. Yesterday, I went on to Stardust stream to talk about just some random drama that's happening, and she sent some people to the channel, and we got to 420 subscribers. So what a perfect number for my next guest, who I assure you is a little high. Not too high, but a little high. So I'd like to introduce Biddy Buddaha. She's a hippie, a feminist, an atheist, a ritual agnostic. Today, we'll be learning about her journey in and out of religious institutions and cults. And we will also be learning about ritual agnosticism, a term I had never heard of before, and still am a little bit unfamiliar with what it is. So we're going to be learning about that. Biddy is also co-authoring a book with Pat Lowinger on the very subject. So with that said, I'd like to welcome Biddy Buddaha.
Hello.
Hello. So, first of all, we're drinking Diet Coke, right?
Oh,
you don't? Well, I'm drinking.
I changed
This is great.
My mind like a few minutes before because it's 11 p.m. here. And so I'm like, well, I probably shouldn't do another Diet Coke. So I'm doing kombucha. I just wanted to be like super stereotypical. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's it. That's perfect. And it's also perfect that so originally we're drinking Diet Coke because it's not legal yet for me to smoke. Like, this isn't Deep Herbs podcast. I can't smoke in Australia without a medical reason. So, but your favorite thing is to smoke. That's what you wanted to bring on. So,
well,
so I was like, all right,
it would be fun.
Yeah,
and a little bit different, but
yeah.
You know.
Well, maybe one day when it gets legal, we can do Deep Herbs podcast, and I can have a little bit of weed when it's legal, and you can watch me have a panic attack as we have a conversation. But,
no.
So that's cool because I've got Diet Coke, which is good. And
are you not a Diet Coke fan?
No, well, to be fair, I cheated as well. It's Coke no sugar, which is it's just like Coke Zero, which I think is better than Diet Coke. So I also cheated as well, which I don't normally do. But I love it.
I didn't know that like whatever my choice was, you had to drink. So
oh yeah, it sets the tone for the interview.
Okay,
it's
fair
all good.
Enough. Well, I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. This is great. But the thing is, and just to explain why I'm so stoked about this is normally I'm drinking like vodka at 7 a.m. with a guest, or or I had coffee with Derek at 2 a.m. That was great. But so normally like I'm getting buzzed really early in the morning because of this show. But last night I'm not drinking today. So last night I decided to have, a quiet little scotch, and then it turned into like many scotches. And then I think I sent you, like, it would have been 3 a.m. in the morning for me. And I liked one of your tweets. And then I like messaged you and said, be me, writing a love letter to my wife at 3 a.m. while I'm drunk as a skunk. And so, I'm a little bit hungover today. So hopefully.
I enjoyed that. I think that's so sweet, by the way.
Oh, thank you. It's some reason the scotch last night got me all like soppy, and I just wanted to I used to write Amy letters all the time, but now we're going into a very new season, and it was like, oh, this is going to be. I got to write something down. But anyway, this isn't about me. This is about you. Where I want to ask firstly, where did Biddy Buddha, the name, come from?
Okay, so I had a dog that was a Newfoundland, and its name was Buddha. And I had previously made a TikTok account, but I couldn't remember my name to get into that one. And so I was just making an account to just watch TikToks. I never really intended on making content and getting followers. And so it just blew up. And then, which is funny because Christians often then think I'm a Buddhist. And so they just go at me, well, and the Buddha isn't a real God. And it's like, but I never said I was Buddhist either, but it gets, yeah. So it's my dog's name.
That's so good. That's so good. That's so cool. So all right, so that's interesting story. But I've got like a million things going through my head, but because there's so much I want to talk to you about, we might have to do another episode another time, but to get it all in, like multiple episodes, deep herbs. But let's just go over like your journey a little bit. Can you tell us a little bit about growing up Christian? What was that like? Go for it.
Oh gosh. Okay. Well, there's so many. Like, it was so funny.
There's like
the Better conference. Dave Warnock is like, okay, but you used to be an atheist. I'm like, no, I was a tattoo artist. He's like, but you became Jewish? And I'm like, well, before that I was Christian. And he's like, I don't understand your story. Like, it makes no sense to me. So I should probably like make a timeline.
Yeah.
You know,
you should make like a little infographic. You know how you like see companies are like, it's like 1945 established. And yeah, it's okay. I can help you.
Like a little
yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, no, I grew up Christian. I went to a Christian private school that was pretty abusive. The school ultimately like went out of business for abuse or some shit. But I ended up going there from preschool all the way up to 12th grade. And kind of after high school, I wanted nothing to do with my upbringing. Like, it was like, if that's what Christianity is, I don't want any part of it. And so I still self-identified as Christian, like culturally. But this is where I then pursued a career in tattooing, which is where I got completely covered. Because then people are like, but you're a tattooed, Jewish person?
Do you still do tattoos?
I don't. Okay, so funny story. It's not funny, but well, should we just go through the timeline, because this kind of falls into why I quit tattooing.
Okay, yeah, let's do the timeline. I was just going to ask if you could tattoo me if I ever got to better.
Oh,
I was supposed
to tattoo Oz and Shane and like a whole bunch of people, but like Oz got his equipment's like, anyways. So I left, I was living a secular worldly life, and it was like 2013 or 2014. I had been watching a lot of YouTube videos about, this was like when Obama was president, about him being the Antichrist and the rapture is happening. And here's all this evidence as to why the rapture is happening. Because I grew up in that ideology. I don't know if you did.
Yeah.
Ugh, super torturous.
Kind of. I remember being really worried about the rapture and the Antichrist. And then someone calmed me down and said, if everyone's thought the Antichrist is in their time, like if you were living in the 30s, you would have thought Hitler was definitely the Antichrist. And I was like, Hitler is way more of an Antichrist than Obama. And then I stopped caring. I stopped worrying about it.
Lucky you. It tortured me for decades. But anyway, so I was on this like rabbit hole of YouTube videos, and I came across an Anne Graham Lotz YouTube video for the people that have been left behind. This is like a project that she pre-made. And that's Billy Graham's daughter, if you're familiar with who she is. So she has her own ministry. And if you would have asked me like 3 years ago, I saw Jesus in my living room. He came there, and I had this seriously, and this is okay, I had this 180 complete lifestyle change. I was reading the Bible like obsessively. I didn't watch TV anymore. But I also grew up on a lot of like everything's demons kind of theology.
Yeah.
And
wait, so you weren't a Christian, like you were quite, you had a rebellious spirit, and then you had an encounter with Jesus in your living room. Can you?
Yeah.
You kind of rushed over that. What was this encounter? Did
well,
did you high five? Like what?
Yeah, we like did shots. It was awesome. No, so I walked through the sinner's prayer of this YouTube video, and like it had completely manipulated my emotions. So I'm crying, and although there was no tangible evidence for Jesus in my living room, the way I would have pitched it to people is that he was tangibly there, because you know how like, well, you grew up Pentecostal, you know, like you can convince yourself of a lot of stuff. And so it was like in my mind's eye, like this, he was there, I could feel him, you know, all this anecdotal kind of, when, if you were to press the issue, nothing happened. I was just in an emotional state. And
Dee said, a home invasion, I'd call the cops.
Right.
So, okay. So you had, so it wasn't like a physical thing or anything, but so what happened after that?
So like I said, complete 180, became very prudish. I ended up quitting. Okay. I worked my ass off to become a tattoo artist, because back then it was a male dominated career field, right? Like the only women that were getting into it were the girlfriends of a shop owner. So I like worked my ass off to prove myself and get into this career. And I threw it all away because I believed, one, Leviticus says that thou shalt not mark the skin in remembrance of the dead. And the culture that what I was in was what I would have considered back then satanic. And so I quit, and I threw all my tattoo equipment, we're talking $10,000 worth of stuff, in the trash, because I thought it was a gateway to demons. And if I threw it away and didn't resell it, because I don't want to perpetuate, you know, a sinful lifestyle, so that I would be rewarded, if you read scripture, tenfold. So like I really took the Bible literally. Like I was convinced, okay, I do this, I get this. That's a promise, you know? And so then I would look, cats attacking me. But so that's why I don't do that anymore.
Yeah, it's interesting because I was the same. When I first became a Christian, or when I say like when I first had my spiritual encounter, I woke up every day, and first thing I thought about was God. I would pray. I would like write big scriptures all over my wall when I lived in this like praying flat where I could do that. I threw away all my CDs. I had Eminem CDs and Marilyn Manson DVDs and just like metal and rap. I threw it all out. It got to the stage where I started like, you know, then I started saying, then I stopped swearing, then I started like picking rubbish up on the way home because it was like the right thing to do. Like you go like, and I don't understand people who don't do that. You know what I mean? Like, I don't understand people who like have this experience, they tell you that they believe the Bible is true, but then don't follow it. Like to me, it's bizarre.
It made no sense at all. Like, and to this day, like when I'm arguing for atheism or whatever, just imagine you meet the God of the universe. That's not something anybody could potentially take lightly. And think of the doctrine of hell. So this is why I don't think those people truly believe in it. Because if you believed in the doctrine of hell, or you believed in this deity, I feel like you just couldn't exist. Like you would have a psychiatric break, because the thought of people actually, what the Bible says, well, I don't believe it's in the Bible, but like the hell doctrine is these people are tortured for eternity. Like you wouldn't be able to function, especially going to work to a 9 to 5, like if you truly believe that shit.
No, you're right. I will even go further, and I'd say that I think that any like sane person, so here's the catch: no one can understand eternity, right? No one can understand infinity. Like it's an understandable concept. I think that if someone could understand eternity, I think it would be, if they were let's say a normal human being, normal thinking processes, they would find it impossible to worship a god that could send even a cockroach to that existence. Like imagine, right? Like no one likes cockroaches, right? No, not many people. But let's say I was just like torturing cockroach, like pulling off its limbs, and people were watching. They'd be like, and it was squirming and people will be like, that's fucking cruel, you monster. Like, stop torturing this cockroach. Or let's say it's a rat, something that, you can see it in pain. Imagine that for eternity. Like, it's unfathomable. And to think that a lot of Christians are just like, yeah, my friends are going to hell, but whatever. Like, it's just like, it's so bizarre to me. Like, it's bizarre.
Yeah. All right, I feel like I unraveled. I just took it in a weird direction.
No. Okay, so that's something I also wanted to mention, is weird directions are totally fine for this podcast. That's what this podcast is. It's weird directions. A lot of the time we don't even talk about the thing that is in the title, because I just like to let the conversation go where it goes. But so with your so you threw away all your tattooing gear. So does that mean you don't tattoo anymore? Like you won't do it? I just want to get a tattoo. I just want to get a sick tattoo from you at some conference in the future. Look, can that happen?
Yeah, I can make that happen.
Okay.
I could totally. Well, and like partially my hands are pretty fucked up from tattooing. So like,
yeah, people
ask me all the time, like, well, why don't you just go back to it? It's like, one, it's a huge investment, and two, I don't want to wreck my hands any further. Like,
is it like the vibrating? That like,
yeah, well, they've changed so much since like when I tattooed, but like it was like these giant tubes that you hold on to, and so like just the grip of like all day,
Yeah, true. Okay, so you've left tattooing. When you become a Christian, you throw away all your stuff. Where do you go from there?
Oh, I joined a cult.
Also, okay. What kind of Christian were you when you first had your experience with Jesus? And then how did you then what happened when you got involved in a cult? Like, did that change at all? Were you the kind of Christian who like prayed for a parking space on the way to work? Did you like pray for people in the street? Do you believe in healing? Like, what kind of Christian were you before you became?
So my initial Christian upbringing was like fundamentalist, evangelical, non-denominational, which is a denomination in itself, but it wasn't very like, I believed in the gifts of the Spirit, but I didn't experience much of that in church. Okay. So like, whatever. So that's my Christian upbringing. And I have this 180 and I swing into like full blown Pentecostal because I'm like, yes, this is evidence. This like, so we were seeing, and it was so charismatic and so like felt like shit was actually happening. And so that's the cult was the Last Reformation, Torben Sondergaard, if you're familiar. I think he's in jail now.
I'm not familiar, but I love houses. I think he's in jail. Like,
yeah, so he's being held in jail. Like, I just read about him recently. And what was I talking about? Oh, and so they heavily live out the book of Acts. So they truly believe that like this is where intercessory prayer happened. This is where I went to like healing conferences. I used to go to like Doug Stanton meetings. He is in jail. See, I told you.
A true movement of God produces, what does it say? Oh, geez. A true movement of God produces true persecution. Torben in jail. So, like, this is a good thing that he's in jail. That. Yeah, this is how you justify it. Wow. Very culty.
Yeah. So I was in that cult. And we would do street healings and we would do baptisms. And, like, this is the water baptisms where we believed that evidence of the Holy Spirit was speaking in tongues. And so we would baptize people in water and then basically scream at them until they uttered nonsense. And then we're like, all right, you're saved. And then
Did you ever speak in tongues?
Yes.
Can you still do it, or do you feel like? Or
I felt stupid then doing it. I feel stupid now doing it, and so I didn't want to speak in tongues. So I sort of convinced myself that I had the gift of interpretation, so I could be the one not speaking in tongues. And it always says that you're not supposed to do it unless there's somebody's there to interpret, right? Like it is useless without an interpreter. And
I wonder if I should speak in tongues and you should interpret what I'm saying.
Okay.
What did I say?
That I'm the best guest you have ever had on this podcast.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I know, right? Pure talent.
Yeah, it's I remember giving myself the gift of the spirit, the gift of the tongues. I remember going for a walk and asking God for it, and then I started speaking in tongues. And then when I started going to like youth groups and stuff, there's a difference between what I just did then though, and like when you feel quote unquote slain in the spirit and you start speaking like these other like very weird tongues. Like I found there's a difference there. So Aunt Jo says no lies detected. That's great. So so you're part of this this Last Reformation's cult. How did where do you go from there? Like how did you get out of the cult? Like how did
eventually so I my husband was always an atheist.
Were you married before you first became Christian, or were you together?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah.
So we met in high school. We dated in high school. Then we took kind of a break. I shared this whole story on Oz's channel. Like we get married in a jail. Just shit's crazy. And
okay.
And so we weren't in jail. We just got married at a jail. Just to clarify.
Okay. You weren't in jail. You were just at the jail.
Right.
Yeah. Or maybe you were.
What?
Maybe it was signs of your persecution. Because
I wanted to get a taste of that.
Biddy in jail.
Yeah.
So you got married. Yep. I keep jumping all over the place.
Nope,
sorry.
You're good.
No, I'm just going to shut up. Continue telling your story.
If I could just remember like where I left off, then we'd be good. What the hell was I talking about?
So I feel like Deep Herb's podcast would be even worse than this. This would be great.
No shit.
So we should get what were we talking about? Holy crap. So
I think how I got out of the cult.
How you got out of the cult. Yes,
okay.
That's right. How you got out of the cult. Yeah.
Okay. So my husband was always an atheist. And he, so open-minded, super patient, would go with me to all of the shit that I was involved with. And so he went to like a healing conference with me in Charlotte, North Carolina. And whatever, he was like, this is some crazy shit. And then I ended up hosting one of those meetings in Minneapolis. And we used to do like the gay pride praying at them as sinners.
Right. Yeah. So you were running anti-gay pride things at the gay pride rally.
So I had it's called a Kickstarter because you're kickstarting the Holy Spirit. And so I hosted that, and then we took teams to different places. We ended up taking our team to Minneapolis at like during the largest gay pride festival, and like condemned people as they walked by, and we prayed for people and whatever.
That's what, when I looked up the Last Reformation, it said get Kickstarted today.
Yeah, Kickstarters. That's what that's what we called them. Fuck. I'm so bad at remembering what the hell I was talking about.
No, so you're talking about the gay pride.
Yeah. And we did like exorcisms and all that stuff. And then my husband ended up showing me a YouTube channel. And the amount of times I've told this story, you'd think in between then and now I would go look up who this person was. But he was basically a magician, and he would perform on the streets of Las Vegas as a street healer or street preacher.
Darren Brown?
Maybe.
Miracles for Sale.
It could be it.
It's a documentary. Yeah, that to me like broke me a little bit. He goes
Did
out
it?
and he
Okay.
like he puts his hand on people and he does the old leg straight. He helps this fake preacher do all these like things like make their legs bigger and fix their backs, and they're all like, oh, it's all healed. Yeah. And they're not using any type of prayer, and they're not doing anything. They're just with the power of suggestion, adrenaline. Yeah, another one.
Yep, that
It's
was
called
it.
Miracles for Sale. It's on Vimeo.
Yeah. Okay, good. I kind of want to watch it again because it was so long ago. But like my mind just went, and instead of leaving the faith, I just swung into the complete opposite and became Baptist, Calvinist, and then Messianic Judaism is where I landed.
Wow.
So, yeah, because then I was like, well, this is bullshit. They're only talking about the book of Acts. So then I just started, I'm like, I'm going to read the whole Bible, and I don't ever want to be fooled again, because I felt so stupid to just fall for this shenanigans. And then especially with that documentary. And so I was like, never again. And this is why I know the Bible so well. So if you watch, like, people are like, you know the Bible so well. Yeah. Because for like 5 years, that's all I did. It's all I read all the time. So, yeah.
Did you find it interesting, though, reading the Bible as a Baptist versus reading the Bible as an atheist? Did you see a difference there in like how you would notice things that you wouldn't normally notice? So, like for me, I noticed things like, the slavery was never something I even thought about. I knew it was there, but it's not something I even thought about or cared about when I was a Christian. But then now that I'm an atheist, I'm like, this is really like fucked up. Like this is not okay. And did you find a difference there between like reading it as an atheist, reading it as a Christian?
So the denomination that I ended up in, the Torah is what we studied. So I kept the law, I kept the feast days. Slavery I was obviously aware of. And what I respect about Judaism and even the Messianic movement, and I understand it's like cultural appropriation, I get it, but that's just what I was in, that you don't shy away from the difficult questions like you do in Christianity, because Christianity is like, oh, well, the Old Testament was done away with. Like, we just don't follow that shit. And that's a lot. There's like a lot of theological problems when you start to do that. And, so I took it very literal. I took the whole Bible in its entirety. And so I was familiar with like all of the verses. I think the only one I really didn't know about was bashing the babies against the rocks. That was a big one when I became an atheist. I'm like, holy shit. And then obviously Numbers, where you learn about the child sacrifices under Eleazar. Shit, it's been a long time.
I'm not familiar with the child sacrifice there.
Oh,
I don't know. Yeah.
They take is it Numbers 32? Someone in the chat probably already knows, but I think it's Numbers 32.
Yeah, right. So So okay, so you went to Southern Baptist. When did you go to Messianic Judaism cult?
Okay, so it was just like, I wouldn't say that I ever attended churches that were Baptist or Calvinist, but like I started to go in that direction as far as the validity of scripture and kind of more orthodox. And so, I ended up, there's a documentary called The Way, and it basically talks about like how first century Christianity and Judaism were indistinguishable. I agree with that still. Talked about how all of the holidays that we celebrate today are basically pagan. It makes the case for, why the law is still relevant, how that is the covenant, and how basically that is what is to be saved. And I still agree with that. Like, I think, like, Pat Lowinger always tells me, he's like, stop arguing for theology that you don't even believe in. But like, to me, I had to go to the strictest like denomination to learn myself out of it because I didn't want to be fooled again. So I basically just continued to learn and learn and learn and learn and learn. And I learned just right out of it because I had that passion for knowledge. But the Messianic Judaism cult, I was in it for, I don't know, like about a year. I loved it. I loved it so much. I used to do like the dances and stuff like that. And I really had, because I was feeding my mind, like learning so much, like they had Hebrew classes and you were learning the Old Testament so well that when you grow up in Christianity, you kind of just get like motivational speeches. You really don't learn the Bible in church anymore.
Especially like the Hillsong-esque type of churches, you know, where it's like 5 best ways to live a godly life. And it's like, they'll sprinkle some scripture in there, but it's a lot of just anecdotes about stuff. Yeah, exactly. And then how I got out of that cult is my husband, again, showed me a YouTube video called It's Okay to Be Smart. And it talked about like evolution and some of the biggest evidences as for why it is true, because I didn't grow up believing evolution and or knowing about it, I should say. And talked about like whale fingers and how the trachea or whatever of the giraffe and how that's not intelligent design. And I was quickly like, okay, there's evidence here. And I quickly accepted then the evolution, like as fact. And but then that started to basically just destroy my foundation, because now what about the flood story? And what about this? And if that's allegorical, how do I know that this isn't? And I just spiraled out of like control. Like I was having an identity crisis, honestly. I felt like my whole life was a lie, and I'm still trying to hold on to it because I liked it. And, to learn that all those years of devoting myself to scripture and this, and then what now? Like if it weren't true. And I remember, okay, so in Judaism, Yom Kippur is the holiest day. It's when God is the closest to his people. It is the apex of days, whatever. And so we were having a worship night, and my foundation's already cracked. I've tried asking people for help, and the Christians that I knew were just being like, well, you really just need to go home and pray about it. And I'm like, I don't understand. Like, what do you think I'm doing? And it was Yom Kippur. We were having a worship service, and it was congregations from like all over the Midwest were attending. This was a really big event. And the lead singer got strep or bronchitis or something like that. And when you're in the Messianic movement, you believe that you are saved. Those that keep the Torah are the ones that God answers their prayer because you are in covenant. You're keeping the Sabbath, which is like the most important commandment of all. And so there's also rules and instructions, unlike the cult for healing. If you read the Bible, there is like, pray, go to the elders, anoint their head with oil. Like it is very step by step. It tells you what to do. And so not only were we keeping Torah, but this is the elders of people that were keeping Torah. They anointed her head with oil. Like they were doing all of the steps. And she didn't get healed. And I went, this is all bullshit. Like it's all bullshit. There's or God, either he is real and then he just doesn't keep any of his promises, because there are so many promises for those that keep my commandments. Like sickness shall not come to your door for those that keep my commandments. Like if that's a promise. And yet we're, and this is where Christians are like, well, God's ways are higher than ours. Yeah, but that's bullshit. That's like what you say to yourself because you're not getting the results that are told to you, like that are supposed to happen according to God himself. And so then I just started spending all my time watching atheist debates, and like you realize just how lack of evidence there is for Christianity. And then you learn like, gosh, the development and what it looked like in 4th and 3rd century. And like, you start to learn all the stuff, and you learn about like Gilgamesh, and like, you're just like, okay, well, wow, this is, what is the Bible at that point? And yeah,
I don't know if I would just like started rambling, but did that
the
answer your question?
the rambles there, yes, the ramble is fantastic. Got a few great things. God is just testing you. That's a classic response. The Bible is the best way to atheism. I would agree with that. Like, it's so funny. I hear so many atheists tell people to read the Bible. Jenna said, "Hey, like the damn video, and folks, and sub. If you do, David will slide into your DMs. Wink face, 100% will." Tang, yes, yes. Shorty wants to be a thug. Yep, I got a nose ring.
You got a nose ring?
Yeah, I got it the other day. I saw you had one, and I was like, oh, I tried to parrot the guests. No, it's this. I call this the dad life crisis because becoming a dad is freaking me out a little bit. So I was like, I want to do something reckless, not reckless, but I just want to do something just fucking bizarre. So for me, it was just going out and getting a spontaneous nose ring. So I did it, and I like it. Yeah. So yeah,
awesome.
it's a bit of fun. Someone said, I haven't read this, so God's work is not what I'd expect from an all-powerful being, but from an office temp with a bad attitude. In any decently run universe, this guy would have been out of on his a long time ago. Yes. So it's actually funny. You mentioned on another podcast that the Apostle Paul was like the Donald Trump of first century Palestine. And I love that so much because it's like, I just imagine Saul like, when I was Saul, I killed the Christians. I was the best at killing the Christians, but now I'm Paul.
Excuse me, no women talking.
Yeah. Homosexuals can't get into heaven. We're going to put a big, beautiful wall in heaven. The homosexuals can't come in. They're not sending their best. Some of them are good people, but they're not sending their best.
Yeah.
It's just like, geez.
Well,
keep out the gays.
The dude literally is like, I'm the best that's ever been. There's no one better than me. And it's like, how was that not the Trump of that day?
Yeah, it is funny. I remember one of my Christian friends at the time. He please excuse my language, everyone. I don't usually use this word, but he said he was a Christian, but he's like, but you have to be real. Paul was a bit of a cunt. And I was just like, oh, yeah, okay, he is. So that whole process, like, actually, I want to go back a little bit to what you were saying. I wanted to let you ramble a little bit, but I wanted to get this out as well. What would you say to someone who is a Christian but doesn't necessarily follow the Old Testament doctrine? So, like, a lot of Christians that I talk to, I'm even getting into an argument with people online at the moment about that. I had a tweet that had like 750 likes, which is big time for me. And it was literally, but people are saying, well, you're quoting the Old Testament. And I'm like, yeah, like, I was like, do you follow the 10 Commandments? Because that's in the Old Testament. What would you say to someone who's a Christian, but uses that excuse, knowing what you know from the Messianic Jewish?
I would say go watch my TikTok account.
Okay.
Because I have one video that went viral, and it was like the amount of work I put into that TikTok. You would like, I found all the verses that you would have to negate in the New Testament and the Old Testament to literally make that declaration. And if that's the case, then like, if Jesus did away with the law and the Old Testament, it says in First John 3:4, it says sin is lawlessness. Well, what is law? In like, that's the Greek term, but it would be Torah, like without the Torah. And so if that's done away with, then sin doesn't exist. And so like I was called like the biblical atheist because I knew that Bible so well, and I knew how to already debate Christians on their theology, that I literally just took it and started doing that again as an atheist, because that's how I deconstructed. The more I learned about how Christianity is just kind of bullshit. It's all bullshit, but you get what I'm saying. Like, it just doesn't have any consistency whatsoever, and 35,000 denominations. Like, that becomes incredibly problematic when you are the like religion that claims to have God dwelling within you. You should be the most unified group that would be like evidently like just so drastically different. Like, you know what I mean? I don't even know what I'm talking about anymore. But like,
no, yeah,
I would
you're
say
right.
go to my TikTok. Like I used to be on Tang, and I would do call-in shows, and I would do the same kind of stuff as teach what callers would call in with stuff, and I would just own them theologically. Because I'm not I like philosophy and all that stuff I'm not good at. But it just became too triggering for me. Like I can't do it anymore. And that might be like a good segue into like what I'm doing now. But there's still a lot of trauma that goes all the way back to my early Christianity and like just gaslighting and, you know, verbal abuse. And so I was just continually triggering myself every damn time I was talking about the Bible and getting into like theological debates with Christians. And so
I find it actually really hard sometimes to talk to Christians, not because anything they're saying is. Sometimes they say some stuff that's interesting, but if I'm being honest, what it is I try and be when I'm trying to have a real conversation with someone, I try and understand their perspective as best I can. Like I really try and put myself in their shoes. I try and be really honest, and when I do that, I have to go back into like an old way of thinking. It's the only way I can describe it. It's like almost
your
like
former Christian self.
yeah, it's almost like believing in ghosts or something. It's like, what if there is a ghost outside? And then that feeling, it's like I have to go back into that feeling to try and understand their perspective. And that feeling really hurts. Like that feeling was like hard to deal with. Because it's so conflicting with my current worldview and understanding. Like I've told this story a number of times, but we've had friends who had prophecies about us coming to church to get prayer for Amy because she had endometriosis, and we had to go through IVF for our pregnancy, and that was really hard to hear. That God told us that if you come, you'll get healed of this thing. Even though we didn't believe it, it made me. It like put me into that old way of thinking. Like, what if there is hope? Like, what if what if there is? Because we're so desperate. And it was really hard to deal with. So for me, I know where you're coming from with that, but for me, it was a little different. In that it's like the old way of thinking more so for me. If that makes sense.
Yeah, no,
I do want to.
A lot of sense.
I do also want to. This would be probably a good time to shout out your channel. So your TikTok is amazing. You've got lots of videos, 1.6 million likes. It's awesome. Go check out Biddy Buddha's TikTok. We also have your YouTube channel, which is stripped down to a few videos, but you will be releasing more in the future, most likely. And this is all about ritual agnosticism, which is the next part of the conversation, what we're going to talk about. I also do a bit of a shameless plug as well for those who are watching. Deep Drinks is a platform where we have deep conversations over deep drinks. Next week, we have student Dr. Ben on to talk about his journey as a trans man. Then we have this guy, Russell Manser. He was an Australian criminal and a bank robber. He was a victim of institutional abuse. He was sexually abused as a kid in boys' homes. And he spent 23 years in prison, and now he is rehabilitated and is a huge asset to the community, helping other peeps. And then we have escaping the Amish cult, the Eli Yoda story. So there's murder, child abuse, incest. This is a hectic story, and now he's helping people get out of what they call old way Amish churches. And then the very last stream of the year is the Q&A stream with Derek. It was called the Derek Knows Everything Christmas Special. So everyone knows that Derek interviews so many people that I think he must have such a broad knowledge of certain issues. So we're just gonna hit him with questions one after another to wrap up the year. So yeah, everyone make sure you go check out Biddy's stuff. It's all awesome. And Biddy, you're writing a book, and we're gonna be talking about that now, aren't we? You're co-authoring a book.
Yeah, I am. it's kind of still on the DL. Pat Lowinger is a historian and archaeologist that I met through the Tang Network, and basically we became friends. We talk daily, and he specializes in ancient magical practices of the Mediterranean. I don't know, something like that.
That's so cool.
So yeah, we're writing a book together. He's going to be kind of explaining how everything works. And then it's like Biddy Buddha's Guide to Ritual Agnosticism. And then there's like a little me like character. And I'm like, I try this. And so the bulk of it and the substance will be Pat for sure.
Awesome. So that's so cool though. So I think I first met you on Tang. Shout out Tang. Everyone goes to subscribe to Tang as well. Met you on Tang for the first time. I don't know what panel it was, but we're talking about. I don't know. It was good. It was a good panel. And I saw in the background you had a little like I think it was a Buddha or a Shiva statue. It was some Hindu god. I've got one back there that I picked up in Bali.
Yeah. What were we talking about that stream? I remember that.
I can't remember exactly what we're talking about. I know that we started doing some like weird symbols for like Tang at the end. And yeah, or something. But yeah, I wanted to learn more about because like obviously like your whole aesthetic is very much like a hippie. Like I'd see you, like selling crystals at the local market. But like that's true. Like you actually love crystals. You love tarot cards. Like you love star signs. You don't necessarily think it's true in the same way a lot of people think it's true, but you love them. So tell us about this. So let's start there. Tell us about this.
Yeah. So aesthetics is a huge part of it. Like so much of myself I felt like I was suppressing that I just kind of gravitated to as a child, like, Hocus Pocus. I wasn't allowed to watch that, but like there was just something about walking into like a metaphysical shop as a child. I don't even know why I would have been there, but like loving crystals and like thinking that they're gateways to demons, and I was not allowed to have that kind of stuff. And so now that I don't believe in any of it, I just fully embrace the aesthetic. I have crystals, I have tarot cards, I like hang herbs. It looks like an apothecary in here. Because it just makes me happy, and it's been really healing to my inner child to basically learn about stuff that I wasn't allowed to learn about. And it's been therapy, and I just do it.
I love what Ricky Gervais says. Someone said to him, like, why don't you pray just in case there is a God? And he says, why don't you hang up garlic in case there is a Dracula? But it's funny, you do. Like not garlic, but you're hanging like well, I do, Ricky. I
got it all covered.
Yeah. Dream catchers a bit like so if what is it about those things that like fulfills you somehow? Like what is it just the aesthetic, or is it like special, or
primarily the aesthetic. Why? I don't know. I love just nature, and it goes with my vibe. But I do use it in practices. So the placebo effect is a very real thing, and you can even electively placebo affect your mind. You don't have to like not know that it's a placebo for it to work, but that is something that I kind of do. Like with crystals, to me, it's like, okay, they represent this. Is that going to happen to me? No, but if I'm like aware of, like, if these things, like characteristics or attributes or whatever it is I'm working on is in front of me, it is a tangible reminder for me to, oh, there's my rose quartz. I'm working on love and patience today. You know what I mean? So it's just kind of like these meditating things to kind of put your focus on so that you have something in front of you. And it's really satisfied because I came out of a very strict Orthodox religion to learn that, which was all rules, to learn that there's no rules. And that put me into like deep nihilism. And so I like, if there's no rules to this, what's the point? So I'm kind of electively putting myself back under the structure that is necessary for me to literally cope, because I can't cope with that. And I know that the atheist community doesn't always like me saying that, because it's not, helpful to the community when that is such a statement that Christians make. But like, I don't know. I don't know where I'm going with this.
No, I think I can see why the atheist community might have a problem with that, but I think that from a psychological perspective, everyone is doing what you're doing. So like, I remember once I had to climb onto a roof, and I was really afraid of climbing onto this roof because I shouldn't have been up there. It was the neighbor like yelled out to me like, "You're about to fall, you're about to fall." So it was bad. But I remember thinking to myself like about Zelda, like playing the video game Zelda, and like how he would step up on things and the courage that he had, and that helped me get up. This is weird, right? Like I'm a grown-ass man thinking about a children's video game, but that helped me get up. Or there are like, people use symbolism, ideas. There are rituals in like sitting at a dinner table, eating food is a ritual. Does that help people get through the day? Well, yeah. Like, do we believe that there are goblins underneath the table that give us the powers to like get us through the day? No. We just, it's part of what makes humans. Right. And so, yeah, like I remember there's this book here called The Thing About Religion, and I wanted to read a little section of it because I think that it perfectly demonstrates what you're talking about, or what I'm trying to get to. So it's trying to define, someone is quoting someone defining religion, right? A religion is a system of symbols which acts to establish powerful, pervasive, and long-lasting moods and motivations in men, let's say people kind, by formulating conceptions of a general order of existence and clothing these conceptions with such an aura of factuality that the moods and motivations seem uniquely realistic. So, like, I think you can take anything, crystals, ancestor worship, the belief in God, and you can find like hope, purpose, strength through any of that. And I think that you're actually being way more honest than the typical atheist. And you're just saying like, well, hey, like, I like these things. I don't necessarily believe in them, but they help me get through the day. I think that's actually, there's nothing wrong with that. Personally, I think that's great. Like, do whatever you do. You do you.
I appreciate that, because there's been some negative feedback that I'm going against the cause, as if they're, whatever. A lot of people have left the religion, but they haven't deconstructed the like dogmatic way of deconverting people. It's weird. But yeah, I mean, if I want to live my life like a Dungeons and Dragons campaign, like that's what I'm going to do, because it makes me happy. Like, the most important thing is learning critical thinking skills, because once you learn those critical thinking skills, and it's kind of like, a catch-22 too, because it's hard to kind of get into something if you also know it's not true. So that's kind of the flip side of why ritual agnosticism is kind of hard, because you want that passion, because it keeps you motivated, and it you have something to devote yourself to, but you also don't believe in it. But what the fuck was I talking about? David.
Is it like
what is happening?
Is ritual agnosticism, is it like you're trying to, you have like certain rituals that you do, and you're trying to believe in them in a certain way, but not like in a full, like you have to almost, I'm trying to get like really artsy with my answer. Like I'm trying to think with the art part of my brain, but like you almost give yourself to it, but you don't necessarily your critical thinking skills know it's like when I go to a haunted mansion.
Yeah.
Right. I can just like laugh my whole way through it, but it's boring. I want to pretend like I want to like put myself in. I'm in a scary mansion. I'm in the labyrinth, with David Bowie. Like I'm thinking about. I'm trying to put myself in that situation because I want the experience, but I know it's not real. Is that what it's kind of like with ritual agnosticism? It's like these tarot cards. Like I'm going to believe in these tarot cards. But then if you would really ask me, like if you really sit me down, I know they're not real, but like I'm going to really like put myself into them. Is that what it's like?
Yeah. You're not believing in a supernatural or outside force in anything, or that you can manipulate energy and, change something. But it's all about self-reflection, self-awareness, self-empowerment. You see a lot of atheists, at least with this whole Gen Z and deconstruction movement, you're seeing a lot more people go into witchcraft as atheist witches. And it's because there's something to just feeling like you have control when things feel out of control. And that kind of gives you something to put your intentions on. And that's exactly what a ritual is. And that's why it's different than a like routine, is because a routine, yes, is something that you do on a daily basis. You get up, you brush your teeth, you have your morning cup of coffee. That's a routine. But if you were to start to put intention towards it, it becomes a ritual. So like if my intention is to sit here and meditate or, whatever, then all of a sudden what would be a routine changes into a ritual. And why am I doing that? Well, because like the studies on this, now there's not a specific field that I'm aware of that studies agnosticism or ritual agnosticism, but we're finding people that just don't believe in stuff and they still go to church, they still go to mass, they still go to, whatever, because it's tradition. It gives them a sense of like, belonging, and they just, I hope I'm answering questions.
No, you are.
I think I'm not answering what you're asking.
No, you're doing good. I think if anything that's happening is you're getting like a little bit of like weed paranoia from, because you're doing fine. I think you're paranoid that you're not doing fine, but you're doing fine. You're doing good. It's all
okay,
good. So what about like I've had interviews that I'm like in my head I'm like frantically panicking, like how do I talk to this person, because they're just like, but this is great. So I'm good. So like how does what do you think about like psychic readings then, or like mediums and things like that? Like do you have beef with those people, or do you believe in that kind of stuff or not? I don't know. What do you think about those?
Okay, so for the very reason I also believe that I could interpret tongues, it's like intuition, right? Like I do believe intuition is real, and I think some people are hypersensitive to it, and typically trauma would be the reason why. Like they're very observant of people's body language, like stuff like that. And so there could be a little bit of that in psychic work. Honestly, I don't know. Like, I don't even know if I'm supposed to say this, but like Pat does studies on this stuff, and the amount of people that even they don't necessarily believe that they have an ability to read minds. So I think it's a lot of scamming, but I think that there's just some people that can kind of really help. But like the whole like I can solve a murder mystery because I'm tapping into the energy of the dead or whatever, I don't think is happening. But like I think some people just kind of get lucky with their just throwing it's whatever like and we always like to associate meaning to everything. We do that with everything. Yeah. So I could say I just really feel like you're upset, and you'd be like, you know what, I kind of it's, and then it goes about also to like the power of suggestion as well. So like we're going to see what someone's saying that could be so vague, and our brain's going to already put something to it, which makes it feel like it's, how did she know that about me?
Yeah, there's actually I don't know, like if you're not comfortable talking about this, then just let us know. But I know there's been a huge leap in the study of like psychedelics. Now, first of all, I've had friends who have taken way too much psychedelics and have essentially ended up in a mental institution with psychosis. I think I wouldn't advocate that anyone does this, does psychedelics unless they're very certain what's going on and they're under supervision, even by like a shaman or something. So I just want to get that out there. But I know that there's a book by, I forgot who it's called, but it's called How to Change Your Mind. And it's a doctor. Let me just find it. It's a doctor who studied it and ended up taking psychedelics and stuff, because there's so much stuff around psychedelics at the moment. How to Change Your Mind. Because that what I've, and how it's by Michael Pollan. So let me just bring it up. It's this book here by Michael Pollan, How to Change Your Mind: The New Science of Psychedelics. And it's a really interesting book. But what I find is interesting amongst those communities of people who essentially trip all the time, or like to do like, you know, ayahuasca circles and things like that, is they communicate. Okay, a lot of them. Okay, two things. A lot of them communicate like bizarre things about like the cosmic plane of existence and like quantum mechanics, and they have no understanding about any of that stuff, and it's all BS in my opinion. However, what I think they are doing is they're trying to communicate this subjective, like internal, like art brain thing into like tangible, objective, physical, material concepts. And I think that there's something to, I think psychedelics is just a more intense, I think the way people communicate about psychedelics is just like a more intense version of essentially what you're talking about with intuition, in that it's a part of the brain, and it's like, it's hard for us to verbalize what that is. So symbolism like crystals and things like that can help, because it's not about objective reality, it's about subjective experience, if that makes sense. I don't know if that made sense, but
I think it made sense. I agree. Yeah.
Am I a genius, or like
you just, I mean, Nobel Peace Prize up in here.
Sometimes I say stuff and I'm like, was that really profound or really stupid? And I'm yeah. There's
like, was that like amazing? And then see, if I wrote that shit down, I'd like see it in the morning and I'd be like, what the fuck?
I've actually, after this, I've got to go delete some TikToks that I made last night at like 3 a.m. when I was drunk. I'm like,
don't do that. Well, we're like friends only, so we can see it.
Okay, they were just a bit cringy. That's all. Like I recorded them and my eyes were like this because I was so drunk. And so I re-recorded them. And I'm like, like this. There's so I read the Bhagavad Gita when I was in or listened to this version of the Bhagavad Gita. It's on Audible by Agnosticism. And I'm not sure if it's in this book, but so the Bhagavad Gita is like, you know, a text from like 450 BC. It's old, right? And it's part of the Mahabharata, part of the Hindu mantra of things, right? And the whole story is about like Arjuna and Krishna. Like Arjuna's like this leader of this army, and Krishna comes and like starts telling him about life and about the battle and things like that. What I found really interesting is some people are interpreting this to be like not a real battle that took place in history or mythology, but like a psychological thing.
A lot of Hindu mystics. I like that, because the Hindu mystics, all of the deities, like, so their ideology is that we are God, like, you know, you are me, I am you, we are God, all that kind of stuff. But like if you listen to mystics talk about the theology, like, you know, all of these myths, they really bring it into like current modern neuroscience and like psychology. And like, I was a part of a Hindu Discord, and I loved it because like I can get down with like mythology when you start like applying like really deep interpretations that would make sense in, you know, like a science worldview.
This is why I wanted to talk to you, because I feel like I don't think any of it's true, but I can get on board a little bit with what you're saying, what I think you're saying, which is like that art brain like feeling, right? So when I there are parts of the Bible that I find absolutely disgusting. But when I read 1 John, which is my favorite New Testament book, I am like, you know, God is light and within him there is no darkness. I feel these feelings just rise up in me. I'm like, wow, this is poetic. This is awe-inspiring. Same with the Quran. Some parts of the Quran were disgusting. Other parts I was like, wow, this is really beautifully written. Obviously I didn't read it in Arabic, sorry. So I didn't get the full poetry, but it was still beautiful. But I remember when this first happened to me with a non-Christian book, and it was this. And I was reading this, the Bhagavad Gita, poolside, drunk in Bali. Wife was next to me, just chilling, sunbathing, and we're just like having a great time. And I'm listening to the audio version. I had to buy the physical book, but it was this that stuck out to me. So Arjuna is Krishna is talking to Arjuna and explaining who he is, and he's saying, "I am the ritual, and the sacrifice. I am true medicine and the mantram. I am the offering and the fire which consumes it. I am the one who to whom it is being offered. I am the father and mother of this universe, and its grandfather too. I am its entire support. I am the sum of all knowledge, the purifier, the syllable Om. I am the sacred scriptures, the Rig, Yaju, and Sama Vedas. I am the goal of life, the Lord and support of all, the inner witness, the abode of all. I am the only refuge, the one true friend. I am the beginning, the staying, and the end of creation. I am the womb and the eternal seed. I am heat, I give and withhold the rain. I am immortality, I am death. I am what is and what is not." When I heard that, like, for one, it sounded like I was reading some like part of Isaiah or like Proverbs or something. And I was like, this is written before the Bible, or at least before those scriptures. And I was just like, whoa. And I remember just like being like perplexed by the idea of this thing that was like everything, right? And that like bring up these feelings in me that I did not expect. And that's when I started to realize that even though I didn't think it was true, I found it really interesting. And that got me on the whole path of like, that's why I bought the Shiva statue, and that's why I'm super interested in world religions, and yeah, so I just thought I would share that.
Yeah, I think, well, you can appreciate religion with being an atheist. Like, you can appreciate the stories and the culture, and, you know, like, I think we're lying to ourselves if we say, like, if we just try to not realize that there is some beauty in these things. And yeah, like, I totally agree with you, and I think it's fun to learn about. And yeah, like, I get what you're saying.
I just don't think it's true. Like, I enjoy it. It's just, I just don't think it's true. Like, I think that makes it so much more enjoyable to read as well. It's like, how did humanity think about things 2,000, 3,000 years ago? That's incredible. Like, what's the context? What does this mean? How is this applicable to our lives today? It's like, it's just amazing. Yeah.
It is. It's fun to read and learn about. And
this interview has just turned to like me telling you about things I like, so I apologize for that.
Well, and on that note, like, so I really like Gaia theory. I really like thinking that we are in this connected ecosystem, and the earth is how we sustain life, which is true, but like that it's like this conscious being, because it makes me want to take care of it, and it makes me like realize that we're all connected, and like, so, and collective consciousness. Like, I can like these things, and then I can live my life accordingly to what they do and bring out of me, and not at the end of the day believe in it. But like, imagination, like, has been so healing to the inner child, to go back into this like imaginative like play, and basically as an adult now kind of living in like an imagination land, but it's not harmful like it used to be when I believed it and was delusional. This is elective. This is what I frame my worldview so that I can be a better person given the circumstances of reality, like, and not become nihilistic. So that's what what I am doing. And so go ahead.
With your nihilism, like, how did that, just to jump back to the part where you became really nihilistic, how did that manifest itself? Like, was it, did you fall into a depression, or did you just start like being reckless with your life, or like how did your nihilism, how did that affect you negatively?
Just super depressed. Like, there's no point to any of this. Like, why even bother? I got heavily into like Taoist philosophy, because that's like, oh, well, whatever is going to happen is already predetermined and you can't do anything about it. So you're just here to experience it. And I didn't like that because it felt so passive, and that like I was looking for a sense of control, and like, okay, this is what I'm struggling with. And like, this is the hardest part about ritual agnosticism is, there is like studies that when you grow up in an environment like fundamentalism, it affects your brain, like the way your brain grows and develops.
Everything affects your brain. Yeah.
So you can leave religion and then your brain is still broken. Like, so it's this then going into what is structure, because for me, growing up in that environment, like I needed a goal. Like there's no goal to this. Like, even if it doesn't make sense for me to be a humanist, because I'm then placing an arbitrary goal. If you like zoom out, there's no goal for humans to survive, right? Like, so that's why I'm not a humanist. And like, I'm like, well, if there's no goal, what is the point of taking care of the earth? Why be vegan? Why not just do like, then I wouldn't say that I became reckless, but I didn't have the passion or the desire to kind of contribute in a society. Like it was like my values had just gone out the door because there's no point. And like, so it was depression, it was that, and I don't know, like
it's also so funny though, because a lot of people, I know people who've gone the other way, where they start doubting their faith, and then all of a sudden life means everything. Like they're like, oh no, this is the one life we have. Like, this isn't just a doormat to wipe my feet on as I go to heaven. Like, I'm gonna travel. I'm gonna like spend time with my loved ones. I'm gonna, like, if this is a big slice of delicious cake that'll eventually go off, I'm gonna eat this cake. You know what I mean? Like, I'm gonna eat this piece of cake, and try to enjoy it. So it's interesting how different perspectives can flip. Like, you can become really depressed, or it can be really motivating.
Well, I think it just goes down to the wiring of your brain. Like, if I don't have a goal, and what's hard for me too is I'm looking for a standard for me to measure up to so that I can be told I'm good or I'm doing it bad. That doesn't exist. Like, there's no rules to, if you are an atheist, there's no rules to witchcraft. There's no rules to Hinduism. There's no rules to any of this, because I don't believe in the mythology behind it. And it's learning to live in the gray and trust myself and not try to look for external validation, which is something that I really struggle with. And I'm looking for a grade all the time. And so that's what religion has done to me. And this is why I am putting myself back under structure, so that I have something. Does that make sense? Am I making any sense?
No, you are. I just, something you said there, stood out to me. Have you heard of Epictetus? Epictetus? Have you heard of Epictetus?
Epictetus?
To be honest, I've only just heard of him, so I might be. But he said, if you are ever tempted to look outside for approval, this is something that I just learned, so I thought I'd tell you. Realize that you have compromised your own integrity. If you need a witness, be your own.
Yeah.
That was really hard for me to like ponder, because I was just like, because I want people to, like, I often ask, people, what do you think about this? Or like, I want someone to tell me like, oh, you did good in that interview, or you did bad. Like, I want to know, because I feel like I can fool myself all the time.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That's just maybe something to ponder. I don't know if it's true, but it's something that I thought was interesting.
Yeah, I'm happy that resonated, because that would be that, like, I like self-help books because they're great. Like, that's what kind of shit I like to read.
Yeah, well, his self-help from 200 BC or 200 AD, I think.
Hell yeah, the first self-help author, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, one of them. So I have so many, so my mind's kind of racing with like directions we could take this, but
okay.
I think there was something I was going to ask before, but I forgot. I apologize as well, because I've been all over the shop as well.
You got to put like reins on me, because I'm like, yeah.
No. Well, I'm also, we're both just, I'm hungover, so we're both just like, our brains are firing at like 20%.
Yeah, we have such a horrible like time difference between you and me, because I'm like way. Yeah.
So you're in Canada now, hey?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, cool. That's cool. I'd like to go to Canada.
Atlantic time. So.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
So what time is it for you over there now?
12:30 or 12:20 or whatever.
Okay. It's 2:20 p.m. for me, which is nice. So you actually mentioned the chocolate ritual study.
Mm-hmm.
Could you talk a little bit about that? Because that's really interesting.
Yeah. So in my YouTube video on like what is ritual agnosticism, I talk about a study where they gave people some chocolate, and in one group they had them perform a ritual. And what is a ritual might be helpful. Like, it has to meet a specific criteria in order to be considered a ritual. So like, number one, that's going to be like physical movement, like an action, a gesture, like an utterance, stuff like that. Two, it must follow a predetermined and recognizable series of actions or patterns. So you could be saying something multiple times, ringing a bell, like whatever it is, but it has to be in a pattern. And then three is the combination of physical action and recognizable patterns of action must be undertaken by the participant for symbolic, experiential, and or meaningful purposes. And so what they did is they had the one test group perform like a ritual before or while eating the chocolate. And that group reported that they ate it more slowly because they were really enjoying it. It was more delicious, they even reported, because you're really bringing your focus in instead of just like consuming chocolate. So the ritual does bring meaning to whatever it is you are doing. It's been a little while since I've read that study, but I'm pretty sure that's the summary of it.
It's super interesting that we can do that. I've read, and I'm probably going to butcher this, but I read somewhere or saw somewhere that there was like, they had these like strangers like get asked a question, but like before that they they were sorry, I'm screwing this up, but essentially like, just by offering someone a cold drink or a warm drink, it would change the way they would remember the whole situation, like crazily. Once again, I'm butchering it because I'm just telling everyone half the idea. But I wanted to, I've got some questions for you. Unless there's something else you wanted to touch on with the ritual agnosticism.
I'm good.
Okay, cool. So the first question I always ask everyone, and it'd be interesting to hear what you'd say to this. What, if anything, would change your mind?
Would anything change my mind?
Yeah, what, if anything, would change your mind about God?
Evidence would be one.
Well,
but you think of, okay, like once I determined that Christianity was false, it just kind of was like every deity, right? Like and if there is a deity, it has absolutely no interaction with us. Like there'd be no way to prove that without like using the scientific method. So like if there was something like that, like evidence would change my mind, based off of like if it was the Abrahamic God. You talk about like, I mean, it's easy for us to say that we wouldn't worship that deity even if it was real, because he's just a, ego maniac, crazy person, right? Narcissist. But like, think about it. Like, if that were true, gosh, I don't know. Like, I'd probably cave, because just think of like eternal torture. You know what I mean? Like, but yeah, like just philosophically, I would not worship that deity if it was true, but it would have to be sufficient evidence, I guess, that like the scientific method is awesome, like that it's demonstratable, that it's repeatable, like that is all we really have to determine truth,
So what would evidence look like for like the existence of a God, do you think?
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I have no idea.
Yeah. It's a tough one, because a lot of street preachers will say that, and then they'll go, well, if you don't know what evidence you need, then you don't, like, you can never be convinced.
Wouldn't we know? Like, I mean, right?
There's no reason, for me, it makes no sense that God wouldn't, if God cared about us, like assuming God gave a shit about us caring about him, we shouldn't need to read it from a book. Like, he could just tell it. He could just say to everyone, hey, I'm real. Like in their mind, they know for a fact that he's real. And then they have a choice whether or not they want to follow him or not. That's still free will. Like, that's still free will there.
Well, you think about him walking in the garden with Adam and Eve. Like, if there was somebody here on earth that everybody was seeing, not just me, and was, I don't know, like, see, I don't even know if I'd like worship him, because I'd be like, wow, okay, let's study this guy. Why is he able to do these things? Like,
yeah, it'd be like, you'd have a few questions like, so why was it okay to drown babies in the flood? Like, just things like that. It'd be interesting to ask. Yeah. What is the next question? Last question. What is the most actually, I'll throw in a bonus question, but what is the most plausibly true religion you don't believe in? Which I guess is all of them. The most plausibly true religion that you don't believe in.
I like Buddhism.
So many people say that.
Yeah.
So many people say that.
I just feel like, okay. Do you know who Thick Quang Duck is?
Is that like a YouTuber name, or is that like some saint that? Okay.
No, it's the man that started himself on fire in to end the Vietnam War.
The cover of Rage Against the Machine's album. Yeah.
Well, and like Time magazine. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But like, he was a Buddhist, and he got, like, there was someone else literally recently, that set themselves on fire that was also a Buddhist this day and age over climate change activism. It didn't get nearly as much coverage as it should have, which is really sad that was done in vain. But there's something to that.
Climate change is a bad meme.
What?
Like, climate change is a bad meme. People hate talking about climate change, where everyone loved shitting on the Vietnam War. So that's probably why it didn't happen. It's annoying.
Ugh, don't get me started on that topic. But there's something to that they can get themselves into a contemplative, meditative mind where they can sit there on fire, and it, like, we have documentation, like videography of these people where they didn't flinch and they just sat there. Like, that's amazing to me. What is happening? What are you tapping into that you can literally shut off like your pain receptors? And there seems to be unity amongst the Buddhists. Now, that may not be historically true, but maybe modern Buddhism, that it's just a lot of different kind of
Well, there are a lot of different sects of Buddhism. I really liked the Dhammapada. If anyone's likes, I think that's a really atheistic. A lot of people call it the atheistic part of Buddhism, but Dhammapada is a good book. But the once again, this author wrote about it, translated it. It's great. But there's some sects of Buddhism that believe in hell, but it's a kind of a hell that I can get on board with. If you're just so bad at burning your karma off through every existence of life, like you just can't do it, like getting rid of your karma and increasing your dharma and becoming enlightened, you go to hell, but it's only temporary to burn off the karma and it's just the process of burning off the karma so that you can become enlightened. So it's like where Christianity is like a test, like traditional Christianity is like a test where you fail, you go to hell. Islam is like a test, you fail, you go to hell. That's it for eternity. Nice Christians will say it's destruction, which doesn't sound that bad to me. Then you've got but Buddhism, it's like, well, no, if you stuff up, you go to hell, and and then you're given like another chance. Like that hell serves a purpose rather than just like torture. And I thought that was really cool. That's something that I liked the concept of. That was a nice concept for me.
My light shut off, but yeah, well, and it makes more sense too, because if hell is real, it should be like in comparison to whatever it is that you did, right? Where in Christianity, it's like, oh yeah, you hit a dog on your way home, hell. Oh, you're a murderer of billions of people, hell. But they're the same consequence. Like it should be. I don't know.
Well, I don't even know if hitting a dog on your way home would be hell. Like I think.
Yeah, that's true.
No consequences for that. Like, but like someone Jeffrey Dahmer eats someone and then repents in prison. Heaven. The sister or the brother or the mum or the dad who can't forgive him, but lives their life perfectly in every other way, or lives the best life they can. They help at the soup kitchen. Hell, eternal punishment. Like that is crazy to me because they can't forgive someone who ate their. It's actually immoral. I would say that's the question I was actually going to ask before. Where do you get your morals from, Biddy? Where do you get your morals from? That's a question Christians like to ask.
Well, I think morals are all subjective, us being the subject, so, and heavily influenced based off of empathy and society. But like if we just have empathy, and this is the golden rule throughout all different religions, is I don't like to say treat others as you would like to be treated, but like
because what if you're like a sadomasochist or something? Or like what if you like to be degraded?
There's some problems.
Like sexually or something.
That way.
yeah. Like I got a degrading fetish. So it's like don't treat people how you want to be treated.
Yeah. But like just equality and you are a sentient being. I don't want to cause harm to you.
It's funny. I had T jump on and we argued about morals for ages, and we disagree. I don't believe morals are real. I believe I'm kind of a moral anti-realist. I think that people just operate within their own preferences.
Yeah.
But on the like, but I would say that in a way that morals are subjective. So I do believe in morals, but not in the way that a lot of other people think. I think the people operating within their own preferences are subjective. But we got into a huge argument, and he made this funny point that he believes morals are objective, and this is like a law of the universe we haven't discovered. And he said that that
what would they be?
Well, he says that watch the episode with T-Jump. It's a bit of a shit show, but so he believes that there's like an unfound law of the universe that we haven't discovered yet that is morality. So like
so like love, love would be the moral.
I'm not sure, but like it's always wrong to punch. It was always wrong to punch a baby. Like it's always wrong to eat meat, and he still does it because he just considers himself an immoral person. But he said that a society with that, the most moral society would be a society that doesn't like infringe on people's like free will. I think is what he said. So like there'd be no stop signs. There'd be no, like, that would be the perfectly moral society. But anyway, it's a long thing, and I don't agree with him at all. But what was really funny is he said that religious morality is subjective. He said that it's the only one that is subjective. He said because it's dependent on the mind of God, and that's what subjective means. And I was just like, damn. And I was like, that's actually really interesting. But then I also love what Dr. Josh said. And Dr. Josh said, if you believe that you get your morality from the Bible, you don't know that slavery is wrong. And I was like, damn. Like,
who is it? Who is it? Sam Harris. He has a whole thing on this, and he talks about how divine law is just the absolute worst. Because, like, if you ask, oh God, it's so good, and I haven't seen it forever, so I'm going to butcher it. But he talks about like asking, a child if it's okay to hit somebody, and they say no. And then you say to the same child, well, what if the teacher tells you to hit somebody? They still say no. But that's like in divine command theory. Now, what if your God is telling you to do that? You now are basically a psychopath because you have. Oh, it's so good. It's so good. And I don't mean to like say that in like a really demeaning way, but like it's basically the structure of sociopathic tendencies when you think of divine command theory.
That's so good. And I also love that for most of this podcast, it's been me and you trying to remember what we were talking about, and then half remembering studies and things that we've heard that we kind of butcher.
Yeah.
I've been way worse than you, but like, damn, this is this is great. If I'm having a good time.
Stuff was like 2 songs, I could remember anything. Literally, I remember all of the lyrics to like Gangster's Paradise, and like, but then I'm like,
R.I.P. Coolio.
Just something I read today, I can't remember shit.
Yeah. I'll read an entire book and I won't remember it until I'm like angry and arguing with someone online, and then all those thoughts will come back. It's like I need the adrenaline to like wake up that part of my brain. But I've been having a great time. I don't know about everyone listening because we've just been all over the place, but I've had a great time. Has everyone else had a great time? Let me know if you had a great time, or if you've got any questions. I've got one last question to ask Biddy, unless someone else has any questions. And that is, if you could, I assume you don't believe in an afterlife, right? Are you a materialist?
Yes. Well, okay. Going back into the ritual agnosticism, I like reincarnation.
Okay.
I like it. I don't necessarily
I like it too.
with, like,
I just don't think it's true.
Yeah, I don't think it's true either, but I am choosing to live my life as though it is.
So you're gonna get yourself ended. You're kind of like the Jordan Peterson of the Eastern religion.
Ugh. It's been a great show.
Sorry. I knew that would be so offensive. No, but that's exactly what he says. He says he lives his life as if, like, his, like as if there is a God. But that's bullshit. Like he's just
Pascal's wager kind of shit. Like,
no,
I'm not, and that has so many problems with it. But like, I just pick philosophies I like that help motivate me to be a better human, and then pretend they're real. Ritual agnosticism, right there.
I missed a question, Andrew. Where did you come up with the Biddy part of your name?
Okay, so my last name is something, and Biddy is a nickname for that. I just don't give out like my real name on social media because I don't want to get murdered.
Oh, can you give us your address though?
Yeah, it's.
I sometimes ask people on stream, like, "Hey, can you tell everyone how much you earn and where you live?" Thanks. No, but someone said Biddy looks fantastic. I agree. Love the whole vibe going on. I don't know if we can mention the thing that you're talking about before stream, but if you feel like it, you can. Tang said, "I am God." Kanye West.
Kanye West sucks.
He's racist God, if he is. Yeah, cool. So the last question is, and I guess you've kind of already answered it, but if you could choose an afterlife or some form of spirit moving on from any religion, and it would immediately become true, not just for you, but for everyone, what would you choose?
Okay, so I like in Sikhism, they kind of have this like you're being reincarnated to purify your soul. I like that, and I like reincarnation, but I want to make my own twist on it, and I like to think of us as like energy, and that we are all the same and eternal, and to think this is okay. Let's say you are eternal and you are given an opportunity to come to Earth to experience, which would be like a blip in the spectrum of eternity, to experience sorrow and joy and hope and sadness and anger and like and grief. Would you do it? And I'd like to think that I said yes, which then when I'm here and I'm going through what I'm just like disheartened about something, it twists it to become, this is an emotion I'm experiencing. And so you sit in it and you just like, okay. And that's what I'd like to think is the afterlife. And I don't know if that is like a specific religion, but it's kind of like learning about different philosophies and making my own.
Interesting.
How about you?
Well, have you seen Rick and Morty?
I've watched Rick and Morty.
So, look, I know Rick and Morty is a little cringe these days, but there's like one episode where they're in like an alien arcade, and like Morty puts on the goggles.
Yes.
Yeah. And he lives a whole life.
Yeah, and they're like, you chose to be a shoe repairman.
Yeah. So, you went back to work after the cancer. Boo. Like, and then he takes off. He's like, oh, yeah. It's called Brian.
That's
I think
exactly it.
That'd be cool.
I was literally just talking about this same thing, that same episode, and that's kind of the concept that I'm thinking of, and that's why it's like, okay, so I chose to come here. Like that in that scenario, he's a human, but like I chose to come here and I'm working a 9 to 5. Like when you said sometimes people go nihilistic and some people are like, this is the only shot you get. I had that, I lost it, and then I re-put it back onto me, because when I left Christianity, I wanted to travel. I wanted to see everything. I wanted to experience everything because I only had a limited time here. And then I became nihilistic. And now I'm putting myself back under that same mindset of I'm here to experience this and I got to experience that. Like, so it's weird how I just chose to then remove it from atheism and put it into, I don't know. I'm weird. I don't understand my brain.
That's so good. So before we wrap up, we've got one last message from Tang. Biddy, tell them about how we pray in tongues for all of the atheists.
Yes. We have prayer meetings every Wednesday evening, and we pray protection over all of the atheist content creators. Yeah.
I like to
blessings.
We sometimes have like friends around and stuff, and if we're going to eat around a table, which we never really do, but when we do, I grab everyone's hands and I go, everybody pray. And I'm like, thank you, Neil deGrasse Tyson, for the scientific method. Thank you for teaching us critical skills. Like I pray to Neil deGrasse Tyson. That's who we pray to in this house. Even though he didn't create the scientific method, and he's just like, it's just like a meme. Anyway, thank you so much, Biddy, for coming on.
Yes, thank you.
It was fascinating talking to you. I hope everyone else had a good time as we like skipped around a million different subjects, but I learned a lot and it's super interesting. Is there anything you want to promote before we jump off? Anything coming up or?
If you want to follow me on TikTok, I don't post too much anymore, but if you just scroll through, you'll get a shit ton of different content pertaining. Like if you have some Christian relatives, you might want to watch my content so you can really argue with them this coming Thanksgiving or Christmas. I put all of the Bible verses in there for you to be able to pull up. And then I have my YouTube channel. So if you're interested in more ritual agnosticism, that's where I'm going to be teaching it. And then stay tuned for that book. You can also follow me on Twitter at Biddy Buddha. Biddy Buddha, like anywhere. You'll find all my socials.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's it.
Cool. And for those who like to listen to this podcast, this episode will be on podcasting apps very shortly. You can subscribe there if you want to listen to it on the way to work. And of course, we have a bunch of awesome streams coming up. And when we get to 1,000 subscribers, we've gone up in subscribers. Thanks, guys. When we go up when we get to 1,000 subscribers, we're doing a charity stream and raising money for a cool charity. So stay tuned for that. And with that said, I'd like to say thank you so much, Biddy, for coming on. It's been awesome. And everyone, I hope you have a great night. See you later.